Hello students, this video is designed to help you if you are trying to get your rough draft going and you're feeling a little bit stuck, or you're feeling like you have some writer's block and you don't know how to move forward, if you're stuck with your planning or just stuck with how to begin some of your sections in your paper. Hopefully this will help. I am leaving the camera off in this so that you can see the entire window. And so I want to start by pointing out this APA help folder. A lot of the questions I've had come my way can be answered by looking at these resources in here. So I just want to remind you of that. Check all these out, including this template I created down here for you in case you need help with formatting your paper. All of these are great resources for APA. And so I hope that you check those out if you feel like you're uncertain. So now you see this window, I've opened up a folder with some example materials I'm going to share with you. In this first video, I'm going to go over some example papers that other students last semester turned in. These are A papers, so you can feel good that you're looking at a good example. And what I'm going to do is show you the paper itself, and then we're going to go back and look at their article evaluations, because you can see how they used those to inform the creation and organization of their paper. So here's the first one. Let's take a look. I'm going to look at their final draft here. And I'm going to share my screen again and show you this window. So here is the paper itself. You can see that this person was using the professional version of APA. You can use the student version if you like, which means you don't have to have a running head. That has changed with APA 7. I think these folks were using APA 6 still. And so I took the name off, but there's the topic. So they're concerned with queer identities in elementary school. And so this student has a nice abstract here. If you really want to read it, you can pause it and take a look. I'll make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And then we're going to just look at some of the formatting first, and then we're going to take a look at some of the topics covered in this paper and trace it back to their article evaluations. So again, you should have the title of your paper on the first line. I believe now in APA 7, they tell you to bold it. So I would bold that, right, if I were helping this person edit. And you could see that most people do this. They have an introductory paragraph that covers all the important topics that this paper is gonna include. And so I think if we looked carefully, we could probably find their thesis statement. I think part of it might be right here. It should be the goal of all educators to provide high quality lessons and equitable access to curriculum to all students. And then they build on it a little bit more down here, right? Therefore, it is a moral responsibility for teachers to engage in conversations, even if they are uncomfortable, for the greater good of student success and making their classrooms a welcoming place. So they've decided that their topic has to do with how teachers can talk about LGBTQ topics and implement certain things into their classroom. And so that's what we expect to see in the headings, right? So let's see what they've got. What shapes school environments? That's a level 1 heading. They've got a few paragraphs here, and you can see this is a great paper because you can tell this person is using their sources a lot. So every paragraph has something cited. Almost every paragraph. I think the only thing that doesn't maybe near the end in the conclusion, but you can see every paragraph has citations, and that's exactly what you should see in a research paper. Let's look at the next heading here. Next one, heteronormativity. Okay, so that's a topic that they're going to go into. They've got more citations. We've got personal concerns. I wonder if these personal concerns are going to be about teachers, probably. Okay, down here, story-based learning. So this person is going into how teachers can use stories and literature in their classroom to address LGBTQ topics. Changing in class conversations. Okay, all level 1 headings, and this is totally fine. You can do this too. You could have nothing but level 1 headings in your paper if you like. And so by level 1, I want to point out what I mean by that. I'm going to show you this window again. So if we come back here, you can see here's a little visual for you to help you understand headings in APA. I've had a lot of questions about this. So all your main points are going to have level 1 headings. You can decide if you want to take those sections that are labeled with level 1 headings and divide them into smaller sections using level 2. Every level 2 is part of the previous section, right? It's just getting more specific. So you can do that. I think most of you will probably have for sure level 1 headings. Some of you might have some level 2. Maybe a few of you who have some long lists of examples, you might go to level 3. In this kind of a paper, you will not likely go to level 4 or 5. That's more like for a thesis or dissertation, something really long and detailed. Okay, so the next level 1 heading they have here, changing school community, and then conclusion and findings. Good way to indicate that you're wrapping up your paper. And then they've got their reference page. So now that we've seen those headings, we know kind of the topics of what this paper is going to be about. I'm going to go and show you again all of their article evaluations. So let's see if we can trace back where this person got these ideas. Okay, so here's their first one. Share this with you. All right, so the first article evaluation says the same kind of topic we expected, right? Children's literature, LGBTQ topics. I would suggest that you start taking your own out if you're struggling with organizing your paper and take a look at all your article evaluations and pay attention to the findings and the significance of the findings, these last 2 sections that you wrote. And if you look right here, this person wrote about, you can pause it if you want, wrote about some things that are very clearly part of their paper, right? So let me go back here again and let's look at the next one. See what we see in their paper as far as topics being covered. Here's their second one, okay? A queer politics of emotion, reimagining sexualities in schooling. All right, so now we have, again, findings and significance. Let's take a look at these and see, did this show up in the paper? The findings highlight how heteronormative school environments put pressure on educators to behave in certain ways in fear of coming under pressure by higher up forces. Similarly, it hinders visibility of queer folks. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we saw a section in their paper that talked about heteronormativity, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually show you that section of their paper and we're gonna see how that came about. So let's take a look. Okay, so here's their section. Now, if you end up with this kind of situation where your heading is on the very last line, and that's in a Word document, so you know it's going to stay in that format, it probably happened because, you know, when you copy and paste it from Google Docs into your Word document, it might not carry over exactly. That happens a lot. So I would just put it down on the next page if I were you, like I just did there. So they have this section on heteronormativity. So they have a couple of sources cited, it looks like. Yeah, I see. So we've got Derman, Sparks, and Edwards. We've got down here, Neary, Gray, O'Sullivan. Those are some of the authors they're pointing out. And notice, here's a little trick for you. Anytime you have multiple authors, more than 2, later on when you say them again, you can use the et al, right? And so they've got some citations, some nice quotes. And let's see, if we go back, you're going to see, if we look at their article evaluation, that section on heteronormativity is definitely based off of this article evaluation, right? These are the authors that we just read. Okay, so I think there's a typo here, but it's the same author in the text there. So if you take a look at your own article evaluations, I am sure you will see the same thing. You'll start to find the findings and the significance of the findings and be able to pull out those ideas, put them into your planning, right? Put them into your outline. Let's take a look at their next one. Okay, so this is the third one, a critical discourse analysis of teachers' views on LGBT literature. Okay, so if this was all by Scheibel, okay, if we can go through and look through the paper, we would probably be able to see that they cited this Scheibel person in the text of their paper, right? And so all your article evaluations should be sources that show up in your paper. And they chose to cite some important quotes here. that they included probably in their paper as well. And so these are where I would say, again, go back and look at your findings and your significance of the findings and figure out what was so important about that author and what they said, and then figure out in your outline where it goes. Now, if you're still struggling with your outline, the next video will cover how to do that. In the meantime, right now, I'm going to show you a different example just so we can get multiple ideas. So we saw most of that person's work. Great paper. And I'm going to pull up a second one now, example number 2, just so you can see a variety of different examples. So here's another paper. This was also an A paper last semester. Trauma in the classroom. All right, so let's see what this person put together. Abstract. Of course, the abstract is always on its own page. And then you got the title again, and introduction. You'll notice a trend here. This is kind of how all of them are formatted. And then your headings begin. All your level 1 headings should organize your paper into sections. This person you'll see has level 2 headings. So let's take a look at what they came up with here. They have their introduction, and we can see that the topic is very clearly on trauma. They talk about impacts it has, and we could probably look through this carefully and figure out what their thesis statement is. But you see this sentence right here. Research indicates that trauma is present in every classroom with consequences that can last a lifetime. But with the implementation of different trauma-centered frameworks, schools can provide students with the necessary tools to handle trauma. That's a great thesis statement. Notice that this person didn't bother to go into all those frameworks and list them. You don't have to. If you feel like it's going to take a while to list and in your introduction, you just want to put it out there quickly, this is a fine way to do it. And we have this nice introductory phrase. It's always a good one, a nice go-to sentence starter. Research indicates. All right, if you're kind of struggling with how to start, you have a lot of research articles you're going to reference, so just start like that. Research indicates what, right? What is the answer to your research question? And this person's question was probably something like, you know, how do teachers deal with trauma in the classroom? So they're answering it by these frameworks. They have their theory very clearly set out in the beginning. This is a good way to do it. You don't have to do it this way. I'm pretty sure the last person kind of decided to put their theory throughout the whole paper and weaved it throughout. I believe they used queer theory and, you know, layered it throughout each section, which is totally fine. But this person chose to just put a whole clear section on Erickson's stages of development. You can tell that this was intentionally done in the beginning to lay a context for their topic. And then we have some other level 1 headings here, the ACE study. And then they have a level 2 heading. Okay, so this is what happens when you have a section that you think goes into something additional, it's more specific, but it's still part of the previous heading. It's still part of this ACE study. She wants to add now how it's important in education. So she put a level 2 heading, right? Now, I think in APA 7, this would also be capitalized, right? But you can double check that to make sure. Here's another level 1 heading, new section, new topic, trauma sensitive frameworks. Okay, so they're going to cite a lot of the research they found. And I'm noticing this person is using a lot of citations and they're using a lot of statistics. That means they probably had a lot of quantitative studies, which is fine. A little different than the previous one, but it's still very good. So they're both great in different ways. Properly identifying trauma. Okay, so we've got some citations throughout. You can see, again, an A paper, you'll see citations in every paragraph. Every section is going to refer to the research. Okay, addressing trauma. And then they have another level 2, strategies. Okay, so this is the importance of it. And apparently this person felt like it's going to get really specific here. So I'm going to add a level 2 heading called strategies. Okay, effects of caring educators. And then conclusion. Great organization. And now let's take a look at their article evaluations and see if we can kind of figure out how they came up with this, right? All right, so we've got relationship of childhood abuse and household dysfunction. Okay, so they've got a link to it, which is nice, but you didn't have to do that necessarily. Here's their findings. Okay, so they've got, again, a lot of data here. You can see some statistics. This is probably a quantitative study. That's what we thought, because you can see all these numbers. And then the findings, strong relationship between exposure to abuse or household dysfunction during childhood and risk factors for leading causes of death in adults. Okay, so that's an interesting tie-in with this study. But you can tell that all of this important stuff that they have in their findings was in the paper. Don't feel bad about citing all these numbers and putting it in your paper. That's good stuff. Okay, you got to have all of those important findings listed. You should. All right, so let's look at the next one. There you go. Hang on a second. There it is. Okay, so here's their second article evaluation. Again, we're seeing this ACE. I noticed that there was a section titled that. So apparently this person felt like this was important enough to the frameworks they were discussing that they should explain it in its own section. Okay, another quantitative study. And let's look at the significance here. Understanding a child's ACE profile and associated risk for development of trauma-related problems and the impact of adversity on school success may be important strategies for improving academic trajectory of at-risk children. I could see if I were giving this person some guidance into starting their paper, I would just take this sentence, copy and paste it right into my outline in whatever section I felt like it belonged. And then I would go ahead and cite these two authors along with it, because that's a good way to get you started. If you're struggling with what do I write? I'm having writer's block. A lot of people are saying that lately. Take these sentences you already wrote and put them in your outline. Of course, you can adjust them and you can change them later, but I guarantee you if we went back through that paper, a lot of this is going to be in there, okay? So let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to open up the third one now. All right. 1 second, there we go. So here's their third one. All right, so we have a framework for trauma-sensitive schools using trauma-informed practices. Okay, so I bet you if we went through their paper, oh, here's all those statistics they were listing. Again, don't be shy. Use those if you need to. Make sure you cite them correctly, but you can definitely use those kinds of things in your paper when you have them in your article evaluation. You already found them. You found it relevant, so go ahead and use it. All right. So this article apparently had several important, significant findings that they discussed. Again, I would say if you're having trouble starting, take these things that you wrote in your significance of the findings and start your sections with those, and you can build around it. You can go back and add before, add after, rewrite it, but it's a good starting point. Okay, so we can see that all these things, this person didn't have to come up with anything, right? They didn't have to come up with their topics really. It's right there in the article evaluations if you look carefully enough. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. All right, the next one here, adverse childhood experiences, screening and health children from birth to age 5. So we see this ACE again. You can see that they found multiple articles that talked about this same thing, which means if you see it more than once, it must be important. That means multiple experts are talking about this. So that's why if we went back and looked at that article, they had a whole section on ACE and what that is and explained it, because that was an important part of the research that they were reading. Okay, so I think that this is hopefully good enough to get you started and give you an idea. We'll go ahead and look at the last one here just so you get a full picture. Their last article review, teacher perceptions of effects of childhood trauma, teachers' beliefs about maltreatment effects on student learning and classroom behavior. So you notice this article is all about teacher beliefs, and they did have a whole section on how teachers can learn to identify these issues in their classroom, right? So it's funny, they look like they got tired of typing up all that data, so they just copied and pasted. That's okay. But they have these key ideas here. And this is important to helping teachers identify what students' needs are. And this probably got them started on that section. So hopefully this gave you some inspiration to take out your article evaluation notes and start outlining your paper with those ideas. All right. And the next one, I'm going to show you a fake example. And I say fake because I'm going to go in a little more detail. I have some fake article evaluations. They're basically made up. I'm going to have a fake outline, and I'm going to show you how to take those and create your outline and start your rough draft if you're really struggling and need a little more help. All right. Thank you for all your hard work, and please let me know if you need more help.